third consecutive season, the Dallas Cowboys will visit the Carolina Panthers. And for the third week in a row, I've lost another running back to my IR spot in fantasy football. We welcome you all to the DLS Cowboys Fantasy Show. I'm Ali Jawad alongside Faraz Siddiqi of Upper Hand Fantasy. Faraz, I apologize for what the Cowboys did to your Jets last week. But other than that, how you doing?
Not great, man. Not great. I mean, the Jets didn't even show up, dude. Like, they didn't even show up at all, you know? Got a couple garbage points in there for fantasy. We were Justin Fields and Guy Wilson, Brees Hall even. They ended up coming through for fantasy, but they did not come through in real life at all. So listen, man, Cowboys, defense stepped up when it mattered early, which is good. And the Jets came unprepared, and it is what it is. But I think, maybe the Cowboys showing a little bit of something, when it comes to that defense right now.
No doubt. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Obviously, this week they got the Panthers. Panthers really, it's like you don't know what team's going to show up because, like, they've been a little scrappy at times. They put up a fight. They shut out the Falcons. They get blown out by the Patriots. They come back 17 down against Miami. But your initial thoughts on this matchup?
It's an interesting one. I look at, first of all, I look at this run game that the Panthers, came up with all of a sudden, right? And it wasn't Chupa Hubbard, and it was the backup, Rico Dowdle, who ended up just going bananas, over 200 yards.
Former Cowboy. Yep.
And, we'll see. Like, I think that's really the key, to the Cowboys, in terms of, like, what are you going to stop? I would just focus on stopping that run game, because if you could stop that run game, you really have to put it all on Bryce Young, and he hasn't shown that he has the ability to just do it all himself, right? It was really the run game kind of supporting that team throughout that comeback as well. So, that's kind of what I would key in on. I think the Cowboys are better against the run than the pass game. So this could end up, it could end up in the Cowboys' favor early on. But I think that's really the key here.
Yeah, and one guy that's really shown up for the Cowboys has been Dak Prescott. I mean, he is arguably playing the best football of his career. He hasn't turned the ball over in the last couple of weeks as well. Without CeeDee Lamb, 7 touchdowns, over 700 yards. I mean, is it safe to finally say Dak is absolutely QB1 moving forward the rest of the way in your fantasy lineups?
Oh, 100%. He's the QB7 overall at this point, and he's been balling, man, even ever since week one. Like, week one, even he's just been doing his thing. He's been slinging it. And even without CeeDee Lamb, he's found a way to get other guys involved, like Ryan Flournoy. Like, come on, like, he's coming through as well. So he's finding his guys, poor Jalen Tolbert, I gotta say, but just running all those routes, just doing a bunch of cardio out there, but anyway, CeeDee Lamb, without him, it's okay though. Even with George Pickens locked up pretty much all game long, until that late fourth quarter touchdown, Dak still came through. He got it done.
Yeah, speaking of Flournoy, is this the week to pick him up? We got to put him on in there. Has he shown it just off one game, or we got to wait to see more?
It's funny because, like, if you look at the rostership percentages, like through all the fantasy platforms, he hasn't been picked up a whole lot because, first of all, nobody knows who Ryan Flournoy is. Right. Second of all, they look at these flash in the pan games. Like, we've seen it before from Jalen Tolbert. We've seen it before. So, like, a lot of people don't buy it. Now, I will say, Ryan Flournoy. So I was at the Senior Bowl. Ryan Flournoy was there as well, and he was looking good, man. Like, I was like super close to putting out a video about Ryan Flournoy just because of how much he was flashing on day one, like on day one of the Senior Bowl. And I met him, great kid, super humble, obviously small school. But it was great to see him, have his first big game, in the NFL. So we'll see. Like, we'll see if his routes end up going up. But he definitely has a big opportunity. Moving forward. And listen, with George Pickens all locked up last week, Dak was just looking at him all game long. It didn't even look Tolbert's way at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one guy who's obviously getting a lot of attention on this offense is Javonte Williams. He is second in rushing, second in yards after contact as well. I mean, what a surprise it has been for Williams and the value they got him for 1 year, $3.5 million, and the way he's delivered. I mean, he has made this offense so much better.
Not only was he a value for you guys, he was a value for us too in fantasy leagues, man. Like, he's somebody that we have been circling, and somebody, if you're subscribed to Upper Hand Fantasy over on Instagram, you would know that Javonte Williams was one of our targets. Like, if you had our draft guide this year, and it was simply not because we knew that Javonte Williams was just going to be this guy. It was more so because of the value that you were kind of getting him as. We knew that he was going to be the starter for the Cowboys. So like, okay, cool. Like we can get a starting running back a little bit later in our drafts. Great. But no one expected this, right? We're seeing shades of the Javonte Williams that came out of North Carolina, right? Now, he's not necessarily making guys miss at a top level, but he is, the yards after contact per attempt is up there near the top of the league. So he's doing his thing, and it's really, really great to see. He's the RB4. So he's the 4th overall player right now.
That's impressive.
In terms of the running back position for fantasy. Is really, really impressive. Love to see.
That's absolutely. Panthers secondary, George Pickens. What do you like about that?
This has actually been a relatively tough matchup for wide receivers specifically. They've given up the second fewest receptions to wide receivers, the second fewest receiving yards in the league, and the second fewest fantasy points per game as a result. But it doesn't matter because, it's not like he has to go up against the Sauce Gardner this week, right? He is going to be, I'm looking at this game more so like 2 weeks ago, right? When, he's going to be running free a little bit. He's just going to absolutely go off, in my opinion. I can totally see like a 25 to 30% target share for him, 6 to 7 catches, close to 100 yards, maybe going over. I can totally see that happening. So I'm all in on George Pickens this week for sure. Oh, and not only that, can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Carolina Panthers, they're a single high coverage defense. And what does that mean? That means George Pickens is going to go off. That's what that means. He's only averaging 1 yard per route run against 2 high safety coverage, and he's averaging almost 3 yards per route run against single high coverage. So Panthers run it at I think it's 11th or 12th highest rate in the NFL. So this is a really good advantage for George Pickens this week.
And sticking with pass catchers, Jake Ferguson is catching everything thrown his way. But, there's still an argument about, the yardage as well. Like, like he'll have 13 catches, 84 yards, which was his stat line against the Bears. But then last couple of weeks, he's found the end zone, which has been great. Where do you sit on Ferguson, knowing he's getting catches, but maybe you want to see more in terms of what he does after the catch?
I think in terms of fantasy, we're seeing enough here. Like he's my number 1 ranked tight end going into this week, man. He is. Like he's surpassed Trey McBride. Obviously Brock Bowers is banged up, right? You have Darren Waller on the resurgence here. You have the rookie Tyler Warren, doing his thing as well. So, there are a lot of tight ends, but like tight end is just a position that is extremely hard to trust to begin with. It's a position with a lot of volatility when it comes to fantasy football, when it comes to production. Usually teams aren't, basing their entire offense around the tight end. But the Cowboys, Jake Ferguson is a big part of it, right? He's a huge, he's the guy that Dak looks at when his first read isn't open. And sometimes Jake Ferguson is the first read on a lot of plays. So, he's just absolutely killing it. He's taken a step forward, and he's kind of shown that ascension, throughout his career. As somebody who, can continue to rack up catches, make plays. If you really look at his career numbers, you're like, well, I guess this shouldn't be too much of a surprise because he was already on a little bit of an ascension for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And then the biggest one, the defense finally put it all together. I get people say it's the Jets, their offense. Hey, 5 sacks, a turnover. 2 weeks in a row, the Cowboys have now won the turnover battle. At least for this matchup, can the defense repeat that performance? I'm not saying plug the Cowboys defense in your fantasy lineup. I understand, how it's been for them this season. But really with defenses, you look at it week to week. And for the Cowboys, can they go in and, put up another 5 sacks, win the turnover battle? Is that all possible against this Panthers team?
Yeah, I think so, man. In terms of yards per carry, like the Cowboys, 4.46 over the last 4 games that they've given up to running backs, which is kind of middle of the pack, right? Now, in terms of receiving yards, they're giving up the most receiving yards, to opposing wide receivers, the most fantasy points, the most receptions, and all that, even to perimeter wide receivers. So, we can see someone like Ted McMillan have a good game, right? So, like, I would focus a lot of my attention on him, and then also just stopping the run. Like, I think that's really the key here. Like, you can't let Rico Dowdle, run for another 200 on you, and expect to win that game. So, I think that's really the key here. Bryce Young is you can really get Bryce Young in a situation where he's flustered. And I think the Cowboys are capable, of doing that. So, it's really about if you can keep Bryce Young, off schedule, that's really what, that's all you have to do, really. And I think the Cowboys can go in there and get a win.
One more for you. Who's the Panther player to watch for this week?
It's Ted McMillan, man. It really is, man. Like like I said, the Cowboys are giving up the most, perimeter fantasy points to perimeter wide receivers, the most receiving yards per game to wide receivers. He's a player that has been on an ascension. He's a fifth in among all receivers in weighted opportunity. That's a combination of receiving yards and air yards. So he's being targeted down the field a ton. And when it comes to, somebody who can make that jump very, very soon, it could be him. He hasn't scored a touchdown at all this year, and the Cowboys are giving up the most receiving touchdowns to wide receivers. So that's the guy that I'm looking at right now as someone who could have a big game. But listen, if the Cowboys can stop him, they have a pretty good chance of winning.
Well, if Luther Burden could do it against this team a couple weeks ago, I would say McMillan has a pretty good shot. But Faraz, thank you as always. Obviously, the Cowboys, they have a big opportunity here with the division being a little more wide open after yesterday's Giants upset over the Eagles. But Faraz, as always, thank you for joining us. You guys be sure to follow Faraz on Twitter, Upper Hand Fantasy on Twitter as well. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Sounds good, guys. Appreciate it. It's actually Upper Hand Fantasy on Instagram. That's where you can find us over there. Just shoot me a DM if you got any matchup issues, matchup problems. Let me know.